Welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us. ANC National Executive Committee has announced plans for a new bill aimed at stabilising municipal governance and preventing frequent no-confidence motions against mayors. The proposed Municipal Structure Amendment Bill aims to ensure stability in coalitions by mandating a minimum 2-year period before any changes can be made to mayoral positions. The bill comes as the ANC seeks to address ongoing challenges within local government structures. Joining us for more on this is ANC NEC member Dickson Masemola, who is also Cogta Deputy Minister. Good evening, Mr. Masemola. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. So the ANC has announced this new bill or proposed bill to address the mayoral musical chairs in metros, which many say have become that constant reminder of the fragility of coalition politics, which has led to some sort of a stop-start with new governments being formed, which has in turn impacted on service delivery. Just talk to us about this proposed bill.
Yes, we have taken a very clear decision, given our experiences of how the coalition municipalities have been functioning in the country, the extent to which the instabilities have impacted on the ability of those municipalities to perform their responsibilities. They have not been able to seriously look at the needs of their own citizens. They have not been able to provide the required leadership so much needed for plan implementation, but also the overall socio-economic development of those important centers of local governance in the country. So these experiences of the instabilities have led to the organization taking a very clear decision on the need to basically come up with a bill that will regulate the formation and as well as the management of these coalition municipal governments. And therefore, we are moving forward towards a total stabilization of our municipalities and our cities in particular, because it is very clear that coalition politics are likely to become permanent features of our municipal governance. And therefore, from a strategic point of view and the legal framework to manage a diversity of perspectives, but equally important to provide space for constructive thinking and process and approach, so that those what has been characterized as free fallers and as well as vexatious motions of confidence, which to a large extent have destabilized those municipalities, that matter becomes an issue of the past, where we provide a window or a cooling period where for a period of 2 years, once these municipalities, their political parties would have agreed to constitute a coalition government. It must be based on a firm legal environment, because the coalition agreements should not just become, agreements for the sake of agreements. They would have to have a legal standing, so that even communities, for purposes of accountability and as well as answerability, those decisions or those agreements will have to stand the test of time, and therefore provide a period of 2 years within which there will be no motion of no confidence or an attempt to want to change those governments, because citizens, when they elect councillors from different political parties, they don't elect them to go into council and turn those municipalities into battlegrounds politically. They're supposed to be there constituting themselves as a government that will look after the interests of the people, because they are carrying a huge constitutional mandate in terms of Section 152 of the Constitution, that will have to make it a point that they structure their administrations politically, financially, and as well as their plans. Now, these instabilities, unfortunately, on the negative side, do largely impact on those systems. And finally, citizens find themselves in difficulties without getting the required leadership, the required management, the required service delivered. But all said and done, it is the function of leadership. And that is why we're very much interested in the stabilization of the political leadership, because that is the main function that will drive the success of those municipalities. And the extent to which they succeed is either these municipalities will succeed or they will fail. As I say, it's a function of political leadership, which is very central in the stabilization of our municipal government.
Granted, the motions do perhaps disrupt continuity of governance, but when you label them as vexatious motions at times, some could say that is subjective. some could be vexatious, but some could be legitimate motions where they feel that the government is going in the wrong direction. So how will you address that element where you have political parties tied to each other, but there's some sort of issues along the way within that 2-year period? How will one address that specific situation?
A motion of no confidence is a necessary tool in a political space when things are not quite okay. But equally important, it can become a negation of the very same primary objective of bringing stability. And therefore, a balance becomes extremely important so that we do not necessarily find ourselves in a continuous lockerhead where there is no time to basically apply.
Granted, pardon me for interjecting there, Mr. Masemola, just in the interest of time. So is there a mechanism that will address this element in that proposed bill? Is there some sort of mechanism that even though they will be tied for the 2 years, one can still bring up a motion or do something to ensure that you don't have a government that runs amok?
Yeah, no, the bill proposes that in an event where the municipality, to a large extent, does not necessarily perform its constitutional mandate, to an extent where these municipalities, there will be a total, provision of leadership, or the extent to which some individuals who would be office bearers might be having serious problems, which would not necessarily give them legitimacy to become leaders. Of course, under those circumstances, there might not be a need to wait for 2 years for that cooling period. So there will have to be other ways and means through which a way could be found to resolve those matters. So the bill tries to create a space where the situation is normal, but just because of the fallout of political understanding and relations, in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, people just decide to want to basically pass a motion of no confidence. But the bill will put conditions that to the extent that the municipality is dysfunctional, to the extent that the mayor, the speaker, or whoever is an office bearer is totally dysfunctional, or he has got issues which impact seriously on his ethics and his moral standing in society and the people that he's leading, those conditionalities will basically determine whether even within the period of 2 years, there might be a need for a replacement or not. But generally, the intentions of the bill is to try to create a space understanding that political parties, as they will be fielding leaders, they will field leaders whose ethical standards would not be questionable, ethical standards of leaders who will be able to stand the test of time and therefore win confidence not only of their political members, but of the society and the constituencies they will be representing in those municipalities. So we're basing these legal instruments on an understanding that parties will give communities outstanding all-round cadres who are capable to transcend political differences and therefore become leaders of the people and not necessarily become leaders of their own parties when they are in those municipal, responsibilities. And therefore, to grant them an opportunity to basically focus on planning, on budgeting, on implementation, delivery of services, which of course at the moment is what is our concern, both as the ANC and of course as government as well. We're very seriously concerned about the state of some of our municipal entities to the extent that they are unable to live up to their constitutional obligation. And precisely because in many instances where there are differences of political parties being unable to work together and therefore have a strategic movement forward, those institutions are severely affected by those instabilities. So the bill intends to want to bring serious stability. Just to give a simple example, we've got metros in the country, and those metros are engines of economic development and activities. They basically are institutions that are very key to millions and millions of South Africans. In fact, half of the population in this country, out of 62 million people, half of that population resides in 17 municipalities. So it means if those 17 municipalities are not functional enough to the extent that they are impacted by different political circumstances, not only limited to coalition politics, it means the larger part of the population will be without better quality
and we understand
they will not be getting. Yes.
And we understand that also it will speak to merit-based appointments. So I suppose this is also a very important one because it deals or speaks to the issue of the need to depoliticize the administrative function within municipalities. But unfortunately, we have run out of time. Thank you very much, Mr. Masemola, for joining us on The Full View. That's ANC NEC member Dickson Masemola speaking to us there.